Part 2. The World of Shin. Although the world of Shin I am about to unveil may resemble an anime story, it is actually far more surreal and vibrant. Even if you try to imagine more, it would still be just the tip of the iceberg. The powers of the Shin in this world can be described as cartoonish Taoist methods. The depiction of the world of Shin in this book covers less than 1% of the entire world. Therefore, I will summarize and explain the essential information needed to understand what is really going on in this coexisting world. The world of Shin includes Hananim, who created the heavens, the earth, and everything in between, and the holy Shin, who are with Hananim, under the governance of Hananim. There are also numerous evil Shin, divided into various categories and lineages. Chapter 1. Human Shin, Symbiotic Shin, and Great Symbiotic Shin. Since the Betrayal Heaven era, evil Shin have used people to achieve their goals, employing any means or methods to thoroughly control them. From the moment a person is born, they are placed within a system made by evil Shin and brought under their control, making it impossible for them to escape the influence of these evil Shin throughout their lives. The Shin that have the most fundamental effect on and control over a person are the symbiotic Shin and the Great Symbiotic Shin. Section 1. The Shin that governs me from birth to death, Symbiotic Shin. Every human has a human Shin that looks exactly like themselves, as well as a symbiotic Shin that governs them from birth to death. Without exception, everyone has a symbiotic Shin that governs them, accompanying them even before birth. However, the symbiotic Shin is completely different from the person's appearance. The symbiotic Shin can be an animal, a plant, or another form of Shin, varying from person to person. According to a traditional tale, when a Taoist hermit descended from the mountain after practicing Tao, he saw people, not as humans, but as foxes, tigers, raccoons, and other animals. Shocked, he immediately returned to the mountain. It can be said that the Taoist hermit saw the symbiotic Shin of the people. The symbiotic Shin takes its place within a person from the moment of conception, controlling and dominating that person's life throughout their entire existence. A person's personality, temperament, preferences, and viewpoints all stem from the influence of their symbiotic Shin. Ultimately, a person is not living their own life, but rather living the life of their symbiotic Shin. Not only thoughts, but even a single word spoken is influenced by the symbiotic Shin. From birth to death, a person cannot escape the control and domination of their symbiotic Shin. Expressions such as evil as a snake or as meek as a lamb unknowingly refer to the temperaments of symbiotic Shin. People often say that we must purify ourselves and be spiritually reformed through prayer or the practice of Tao. However, as long as our symbiotic Shin controls us, true spiritual reform is impossible. The term enlightenment is just a word, and even if one outwardly adorns oneself to appear different, the Shin that governs that person remains unchanged. In the end, for oneself to truly be reformed, it is not the body that must change, but the Shin that governs oneself. Just as a car owner drives their car, the original principle is that the human Shin should serve as the central role of the body. In this case, the fate of the body aligns with the fate of the human Shin. However, this normal life has been disrupted by evil Shin, causing everyone to be controlled by their symbiotic Shin. In other words, the fate of the body has become the fate of the symbiotic Shin. It's as if the car owner is locked in the trunk while someone else drives the car at will. For this reason, people currently living on this earth are not living a life where their human Shin serve as the central role of their body. Their appearance is human, but they live with their symbiotic Shin. This is the reality of how people on this earth are living now, and it is their fate, swayed by their symbiotic Shin. If people do not realize this, the situation will never change, and they will never be able to escape the control of their symbiotic Shin. Section 2. The Shin that rules over the symbiotic Shin, the great symbiotic Shin. In the system of evil Shin, there are various categories and lineages, each with different ranks, and a highest Shin for each category. The symbiotic Shin also belongs to a specific category of Shin and serves the highest Shin of its category, according to strict top-down obedience. The Shin that the symbiotic Shin serves is called the Great Symbiotic Shin. Since the symbiotic Shin, which controls a person, serves the Great Symbiotic Shin, the Great Symbiotic Shin ultimately dominates the symbiotic Shin. Thus, a person is ultimately under the control of the Great Symbiotic Shin. A person's choice of religion, or Tao, is also influenced by their symbiotic Shin. If one chooses a faith that matches their symbiotic Shin, things tend to go well. If one chooses a faith that does not match their symbiotic Shin, difficulties will arise. For example, if one's symbiotic Shin is a fox Shin, choosing a religion, or Tao, ruled by the king of the fox Shin, would be a proper choice, since they belong to the same category. However, choosing a religion, or Tao, ruled over by the king of the tiger Shin, would be a wrong choice, as they belong to a different category. Therefore, it is understandable that family members follow different religions or Tao practices because their symbiotic Shin are different. If people's symbiotic Shin belong to the same category, they easily become close. If they are in a romantic relationship, their compatibility will be good, making them a perfect match. If one's symbiotic Shin is a fox Shin, they naturally gather with other fox Shin. If it is a bear Shin, they gather with other bear Shin. If it is a tiger Shin, they gather with other tiger Shin. This might explain the saying, like attracts like. However, it is not only humans who have great symbiotic Shin. Animals and plants also have the Shin that rule over themselves. Furthermore, natural features like mountains and sea, as well as religions, Tao organizations, and even nations and ethnic groups, each have their own ruling Shin. When you go to a mountain, there is a mountain Shin that rules over it. Additionally, people of the same ethnicity share similar ethnic traits because they all live under the influence of the Shin that rules over their ethnicity. There is also a nation Shin that rules over a nation. Each country has a founding myth that has been passed down, and these myths can be seen as stories about the Shin that rule over those nations. Ultimately, it is difficult for a person to break free from the control of their symbiotic Shin, not only because the symbiotic Shin itself is powerful, but also due to the presence of the great symbiotic Shin. The symbiotic Shin obeys the great symbiotic Shin and receives power from it. In other words, until the chain between the great symbiotic Shin and the symbiotic Shin is completely severed, it is impossible for a person to escape their control by their own strength. Therefore, the human Shin within a person is restricted by the symbiotic Shin and the great symbiotic Shin, existing merely as a shadow. When a person dies, the symbiotic Shin leaves the body and seeks another place, but the human Shin goes to the afterlife, where it is pursued by evil Shin. The life of the human Shin is tough and full of hardships, both when it is within the body and after it has left the body. While a person has a body, the Shin that should originally govern the body is the human Shin. However, it is oppressed by the symbiotic Shin and the great symbiotic Shin, unable to fully manifest its power, which is quite pitiful and lamentable. Therefore, for a person to reclaim their life through righteous faith and Tao means to escape the control of the symbiotic Shin and the great symbiotic Shin, which belong to the category and lineage of evil Shin. Thus, righteous faith and Tao are the paths to restoring a true life to the human Shin. For the human Shin to restore its true life is to find the root, and that root is the young. That is because the young from the beginning resides within the human Shin. This young of the beginning is the true self that has reincarnated through countless lives since the creation of the beginning. Section 3. Righteous Faith and Tao, the path to becoming the Holy Shin. To be completely free from the domination of the symbiotic Shin, a holy Shin conceived with a holy young must hold a position within a person. For the holy Shin to hold a position, it is only possible if the holy Shin's Hananim conceives the holy young within a person. When the holy young comes to the young within a human Shin, it is like a man and a woman uniting to give birth to a child. The human Shin is reborn as the holy Shin. Initially, the power of the symbiotic Shin is stronger, so one is more impacted by it. The holy Shin within oneself gradually grows under the protection of heaven. As the power of the holy Shin gradually becomes stronger and the power of the symbiotic Shin relatively weakens, the holy Shin finally begins to empower oneself more significantly. Following righteous faith and practicing the righteous Tao, nurture the holy Shin. When the holy Shin holds a position within a person, the disturbance of evil Shin intensifies, and from this point, the person's choices become crucial. One must fight and overcome the evil Shin to ensure that the holy Shin grows rightly and strongly. Therefore, one must have faith in the holy Shin's Hananim and practice the holy Shin's Tao to maintain one's faith. Only the holy Shin is indeed conceived with the holy young. Those reborn as the holy Shin, though their bodies remain in the world, become heavenly people. What greater blessing could there be than this? Section 4. The ratio of evil Shin within a person. A person under the control of evil Shin can still practice heavenly faith and Tao, because the symbiotic Shin does not completely dominate them 100%. In the case of an ordinary person, the symbiotic Shin controls about 80% of their being. The remaining 20% is not controlled by the symbiotic Shin, which is due to the presence of that person's young. The young, created by the Hananim of the beginning, is an eternal life form and is not subject to the control of any other Shin, except the one who created them. Thus, this young is truly the seed of hope for humans. If a person is 100% under the control of an evil Shin, it means their young itself is also an evil young. Such a person has no chance at all and can never escape the control of the evil Shin. However, such cases are very rare. Most people can lower the proportion of evil Shin through heavenly faith and Tao. Reducing the proportion of evil Shin is not achieved merely by praying, "Please make it happen." Instead, the holy Shin must hold a position within oneself, and one must fight and overcome the evil Shin. The holy Shin, conceived with the holy young, can do so only through righteous faith and Tao. Therefore, no one else can achieve it on your behalf. Section 5. Righteous faith and Tao. Achieving righteous faith and Tao is difficult due to the disturbance of evil Shin. If an evil Shin makes a person pray or practice Tao, it is merely using the person as a tool to enhance its own power. Without a body, it is difficult for them to enhance their power, so evil Shin use people to practice Tao and take the results for themselves. In such a situation, how can anyone guarantee that their own faith and Tao are correct? Following false faith is all in service of the evil Shin. Blindly pursuing and practicing false faith and Tao without understanding this principle is futile, merely serving as a puppet for the evil Shin. This ultimately leads to betraying heaven. To achieve righteous faith and Tao, it is only possible through the heavenly Tao, not through the false Tao. The holy Shin, holding a position within oneself, is not something a person can achieve. It must be bestowed by Hananim. So, how can a person achieve righteous faith and Tao without even a grateful heart toward the one who created them? Only when one is reborn as a holy Shin through righteous faith and Tao can it be said that true faith and Tao have been achieved. Section 6. Types of Shin. There are countless types of Shin, but they can be roughly categorized as follows. Shin of animal and plant. Every kind of animal and plant in the world has a Shin that looks exactly like its form. These Shin reside within the animals and plants while they are alive, but after they die, the Shin leave their bodies and live in the world of Shin. Therefore, in the world of Shin, there are Shin in the forms of all kinds of animals and plants we know, ranging from predators like tigers and lions to domesticated animals like dogs, cats, and cows, as well as various types of grasses, flowers, and trees. Moreover, the lifespans of these Shin, unlike those of human Shin, range from thousands to tens of thousands of years. Additionally, in the world of Shin, not only do extinct dinosaurs, Archaeopteryxes, and ancient plants exist, but also mythical creatures such as dragons and Hate, which are often considered imaginary animals. In the Chinese mythological text, Shan-hereditary, many various rare forms are described, and all these forms of Shin exist in the world of Shin. Skeleton Shin. When a person dies and is buried in the ground, the body decays, leaving only the bones. From these bones, another Shin arises, called the skeleton Shin. However, unless the burial site is in a good feng shui locus, even the bones will not remain intact, and the skeleton Shin will negatively affect the descendants, causing many troubles in the family. These troubles occur due to the corpse in the bad feng shui grave. The best way to avoid such influences is through cremation. In this context, a bad feng shui grave refers to one that is flooded with water, where tree roots invade and wrap around the body, where sunlight does not reach well, and where the body does not decompose properly. Object Shin. Every object and thing with a form has a Shin that mirrors its shape, known as the object Shin. These object Shin can also cause people to become ill. Science Shin, anime Shin, and computer game Shin. The science Shin, anime Shin, and computer game Shin are newly emerged types of Shin due to the development of civilization. When an object is produced, a Shin that mirrors its form arises like a shadow. Thus, as science advances, new Shin that did not exist in the past are emerging. Science Shin includes various machine Shin and robot Shin that have arisen due to the development of scientific civilization. Anime Shin and computer game Shin are Shin that are replicated when people frequently watch animation or play computer games, causing people's emotions to become dry and making them develop violent tendencies. Demon Shin and Satan Shin. The terms demon or Satan are commonly used in the world, and in reality, the demon and Satan exist as Shin. The Satan Shin has the form of a snake with large wings and is much larger than the dinosaur Shin or dragon Shin. Although not widely known, there are similar types, such as the demonized angel Shin, which refers to a fallen angel Shin, and the demon angel Shin, which refers to various animal-formed Shin with wings, such as winged tiger Shin or winged lion Shin. Alien Shin. Alien Shin, as the name suggests, are the Shin of extraterrestrials. They possess a high level of scientific knowledge, travel in spacecraft made of ki, and constantly invade Earth. There are science fiction movies depicting extraterrestrials enslaving humans and attacking Earth, and this actually happens in the world of Shin. Alien Shin, possessing exceptional intellectual abilities and highly advanced civilizations, attack and kill various Shin on Earth or capture them for research purposes. Merged Shin. Merged Shin are Shin, formed by combining different Shin with distinct appearances and characteristics, resulting in a completely new form and power. In ancient mythology, various forms of Shin are depicted. There are even monsters like the therianthrope, with hair made of snakes, and human heads, but animal bodies. All these forms of Shin exist in the world of Shin. Evil Shin, when merged, not only combine their appearances, but also their abilities and powers, becoming even more formidable Shin. With the abilities and powers gained through this process, they expand their dominion. The world of Shin is made up of ki rather than matter, so, for powerful evil Shin, such merging is a very simple task. Chapter 2. Characteristics of Shin. Section 1. Each Shin has its own character. Each Shin has its own character. For instance, the tiger Shin is fearless, embodying the temperament of a tiger. The fox Shin is sly, and the snake Shin is wicked. When one of these Shin settles in a person as the symbiotic Shin, the person exhibits the temperament of that Shin. Some people have strong personalities because they have strong Shin within them. Section 2. The status of Shin is determined by their abilities and power. Similar to the physical world, the world of Shin also operates under a system and order. In that world, the status of a Shin is determined by its abilities and power. Even within the category and lineage of evil Shin, there is a strict hierarchy, from the highest to the lowest Shin. In heaven, there exists only one category and lineage, composed solely of the holy Yong and Shin. In contrast, on the earth, there are various categories and lineages of evil Shin that engage in constant warfare to expand their territories. From the perspective of the Shin, when one nation invades another, it is also a process in which the Shin ruling over that nation expands its power. Section 3. The world of Shin and the physical world coexist. The world of Shin does not exist separately. In the physical world where people live, the Shin also coexist, residing within nature like mountains and seas, as well as within organisms and inanimate things. Moreover, the Shin draw in numerous Shin of the same category to live together. So, when one Shin enters a person's body, the Shin related to it also come along. Thus, people live surrounded and affected by the countless Shin within and around their bodies. However, people are unaware that they are under the influence of such Shin, and believe that the characters or temperaments shaped by the Shin are their own. For what purpose do the Shin enter people's bodies? Firstly, it is because there is vital ki in the human body. Evil Shin sustain themselves by absorbing the vital ki in human bodies, and they use this energy to reproduce their own kind. Therefore, a human body with vital ki is a perfect environment for evil Shin. Secondly, it is because humans hold wisdom. In the world of Shin, ability equates to power and status. Evil Shin will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. They take advantage of human wisdom and make people pray to their King Shin of their own evil category to achieve what they desire, taking the results for themselves. Thirdly, Shin come according to karma. There are relationships over the countless cycles of reincarnation and the actions called karma arising from these relationships. No matter what the present is like, people have formed countless relationships and accumulated much karma through their past lives. The Shin, stemming from such relationships and karma, come to that person. For example, if a person cut down trees to build a house in a past life, the tree Shin will come to them. If they killed animals for food, the Shin of those animals will come to them. When it is said that they come, it means they come to seek revenge. The reason for advising against unnecessary taking a life is to minimize the bad karma caused by the Shin arising from such actions. Fourth, simply living with a physical body is an act that attracts Shin. People require food, drinks, clothing, and housing, which signify the essence of everyday life. For that reason, life itself is intertwined with Shin, the Shin that come when eating, drinking, wearing clothes, living in a house, and engaging in activities in daily lives. Since Shin are constantly present throughout a person's life, it is impossible to avoid them. Ultimately, people and Shin inevitably have to live together. Just like the two sides of a coin, the world of Shin and the physical world are interconnected. Section 4. The disguises of evil Shin to control people. Sometimes people say they are worshipping a Shin, but before rejoicing over having met a Shin, they must be able to distinguish what kind of Shin it is, because evil Shin are skilled at disguising themselves. There are many Shin with abilities beyond human imagination, capable of changing their appearance at will. Evil Shin disguise themselves as holy beings to deceive people. If evil Shin showed their ghastly appearance, people would only be afraid and not follow them. Therefore, they disguise themselves in a form that the person would find appealing. It is easy for people who lack the abilities of Shin to be tricked by simply seeing the disguised form of a Shin. One day, a religious person who claimed to see God said that an angel was staying at his house. It turned out that a Satan Shin was disguised as a holy angel Shin. Fortunately, the Satan Shin revealed its true form, so I was able to inform the person. However, Many people are still deceived by disguised evil Shin, serving and praying to them, and spreading false faiths to others. What's worse, they dare to argue recklessly about heaven, which is truly unfortunate and foolish. Among those who pray and practice Tao, there are people who claim to have opened their third eye or developed a sixth sense. It is not uncommon for them to believe only what they see and fall for the tricks of evil Shin. Before trusting in their own abilities, they must realize that the abilities of evil Shin are hundreds or even thousands of times greater than their own. People who claim that their third eye has opened or that they have developed a sixth sense can actually be said to possess an eye of Shin. To explain the difference between an eye of Shin and an eye of Yang, an eye of Shin is what the Shin that rules over oneself shows, often appearing different from the actual form. On the other hand, an eye of Yang is what a person reborn as a holy Shin, conceived with a holy Yang, sees through prayer, allowing them to see the true identity of evil Shin. Therefore, when it comes to seeing the world of Shin, an eye of Shin cannot be compared to an eye of Yang. Only through an eye of Yang can one differentiate between holy Shin and evil Shin. Evil Shin are not only good at disguising, but also at deceiving. They tempt people with many promises to make them their servants, offering what the person desires most to make them obey. If people do not obey, the evil Shin achieve their goals by causing them to suffer inexplicable pain or hardships. People tend to be easily deceived when they are recognized or offered abilities. Once they fall for it, they will never be able to cast off the yoke of the Shin's dominance. Therefore, anyone who seeks to achieve righteous faith and Tao must be able to accurately distinguish Shin. Before acquiring such discernment, one must consider that what they see and hear may not be correct. Such discernment will be the only shield to protect oneself from the cunning tricks of evil Shin. Section 5. The dangers of dealing with Shin. There are people who claim to be able to converse with and control their Shin. Everyone has a ruling Shin, so if they can link to the ruling Shin, they will gain its abilities. Those who understand this seek to obtain the powers of stronger Shin by visiting mystic mountains and rivers and praying. When they gain the abilities of Shin they desire, they often try to confront or control other Shin. The problem is that their ruling Shin cannot always be stronger than the Shin of others. If they only deal with people whose Shin is weaker than their own, they are fortunate. However, if this is not the case, they might be counterattacked by the other person's Shin. Anyone who wishes to deal with Shin must understand this principle well. It is not uncommon for people who perform key treatment or laying on of hands to get shocked or, in severe cases, to collapse during the practice. This can be seen as akin to picking a fight with a Shin stronger than their own and getting severely beaten. In the end, dealing with Shin without understanding the world of Shin is like going to a battlefield unarmed. Section 6. Possession Phenomenon and Guardian Angel. People who are possessed experience severe physical pain, or exhibit abnormal behavior for no apparent reason. However, since everyone lives under the influence of Shin, every person is technically in a state of possession. The only difference is whether the influence of the Shin is prominently displayed or not. People think negatively about possession, yet they vaguely yearn for a Shin they believe looks over and protects them, calling it guardian angels. This is because they do not understand the Shin that rules them over from within. Of course, the ruling Shin may sometimes protect the person and perform beneficial acts, but these actions are not for the person's sake. Instead, they are meant to make the person believe in them more firmly. Section 7. Glossolalia and Shin. Among those who pray and practice Tao, some speak in tongues. Simply put, glossolalia is the language of the Shin. Just as learning the language of a country allows you to converse with its people, mastering a particular glossolalia enables you to communicate with the Shin that use that language. However, just as there are various types of Shin, there are also many different forms of glossolalia. In the domain of evil Shin, numerous forms of glossolalia exist. The glossolalia, given as a divine gift from heaven, is referred to as speaking in Young's tongue, and this is the language of the holy Shin and Young. Speaking in tongues, if it is not speaking in Young's tongue, but in the tongue of an evil Shin, serves to strengthen the evil Shin that has entered oneself. There are more than 5,000 types of glossolalia. Just as there are different languages in each country, there are also different types of glossolalia among the various categories and lineages of Shin. Each religion or Tao organization has its own ruling Shin. Because these ruling Shin are different, the glossolalia they use are naturally different as well. Section 8. Amulet and Shin. An amulet is a drawing or writing that contains the power or abilities of a Shin. An amulet can be effective depending on the capabilities of the Shin within the person making it. However, if a Shin stronger than the one in the amulet interferes, it will not be effective. The effectiveness of an amulet is determined by Shin, so ultimately, relying on the amulet for help is essentially the same as worshipping the Shin, although the form is different. However, there are amulets of holy Shin and evil Shin, so it is important to distinguish between them. Section 9. The Shin, ruling over religions and Tao. Just as there is a Shin that rules over a person, there are the Shin that dominate religions and Tao. When a person becomes a member of a religion or Tao, they inevitably become linked to the Shin that controls it. If the religion or Tao follows righteous faith, the ruling Shin will be a holy Shin, so there is no need to worry. If that is not the case, when a person becomes affiliated with a certain religion or Tao, the ruling Shin sends its low-ranking Shin to take residence within that person. This is to enslave that person forever. Even though the person goes there with the intention of seeking to follow the right path, the Shin says, "Since you have voluntarily come to me, you belong to me." Once a person begins to be controlled by a Shin, they can never escape from that Shin by their own strength. Under the increasingly strong influence of these Shin, a person loses their ability to exercise good judgment. Blind faith and fanaticism, where right and wrong are no longer considered, stem from this. Even if they leave that religion or Tao, they will still remain under the influence of the Shin. Section 10. Religious wars are wars of Shin. Religions in this world profess love and compassion and advocate for peace. However, it seems that such love and compassion do not apply to themselves, as conflicts between religions with different doctrines continue unabated. This is because the conflicts and disputes between religions are related to the battles of Shin. In other words, the fights among those Shin that govern these religions influence their followers, resulting in interreligious conflicts. In the world of Shin, different categories of Shin engage in life and death battles to expand their territories and power. Conflicts between religions are no different. Since the Shin ruling over each religion are different, when people of different faiths meet, the Shin within them engage in battles, and the people become unknowingly pulled into these conflicts of Shin. That is, the battles of Shin influence people, causing them to fight like the Shin. Ultimately, religious wars are not just wars between the believers of different religions, but can be seen as wars between the Shin that rule over those religions. Chapter 3. Diseases caused by Shin. Section 1. Shin-hereditary disease, chronic disease, and karmic disease. Diseases caused by Shin come in various forms. These include Shin-hereditary diseases, passed down through ancestors who died from illness, as well as chronic diseases, where Shin continuously inhabit a part of the body, depleting its vitality. Additionally, there are karmic diseases, stemming from past life actions, mental illnesses caused by Shin, enslaving a person, and countless other diseases for which Shin are the root cause. Section 2. Diseases caused by past life karma. Some diseases are so severe that they cause lifelong suffering. This is often the case when the Shin causing the illness is linked to the person's past life karma. In such cases, the linked Shin have entered the person, either to seek revenge due to a grudge or for various other motives. These Shin will not leave the body unless the karma is resolved. Among patients, there are many cases where Shin related to past life karma enter and harm their bodies. For example, if a person killed many others on the battlefield in a past life, not only would the Shin of those killed by this person enter their body, but also the Shin that resided in the bodies of those the person killed. There are also cases where injuries from a past life carry over into the present life. For example, a person suffering from liver disease was found to have died from a spear wound to the liver in a past life, which continued to affect them in this life. The only way to heal such diseases is to identify past life's karma and eliminate that karmic impact. Therefore, there are diseases that can be resolved by modern medicine and those that cannot. To completely resolve certain illnesses, both modern medical science and Shin treatment techniques must be integrated to find the answer. Section 3. The reality of key cure. There are people who perform healing acts by touching the patient's body, claiming it to be key treatment, or laying on of hands. These practices can be extremely dangerous, not only for the performer, but also for the person receiving the treatment. These healing acts are carried out not through ki, but through Shin. It is an act of expelling the Shin, causing the illness in the patient, using the power of the Shin within the performer. The problem, however, is that during these acts, there is an exchange of Shin between the performer and the patient. Most illnesses are caused by the effects of Shin, so there are Shin associated with the illness within the patient. When a performer touches the patient's body, the Shin within the patient can enter the performer's body, and vice versa. Depending on the strength of the Shin within the performer, the patient's illness may be cured. However, whether the illness is cured or not, the performer receives Shin from the patient's body through the act of curing. If the performer cannot eliminate these Shin associated with the illness, they accumulate and eventually cause the performer to suffer from more severe illnesses. Therefore, if the performer lacks the ability to extract and eliminate the Shin that enter their body, they should avoid such reckless actions. It must be remembered that performing curing acts without understanding the principles of Shin can harm both the performer and others. The same caution applies to the patient. Even if the illness is cured through ki cure or laying on of hands, the patient must be aware that the Shin in the performer's body has replaced the illness-causing Shin in their own body. Although it may initially seem effective, the Shin accumulated in the performer's body also enter the patient, which may eventually lead to worse outcomes. Ultimately, ki cure, or laying on of hands, essentially involves an exchange of Shin between the patient and the performer. Therefore, understanding this reality would discourage reckless engagement in such curing acts. Section 4. Aftereffects, the pain of untreated human Shin. After an accident, when the body is medically healed, but pain persists, this is called an aftereffect. To understand this aftereffect, one must first grasp the concept of Shin. For example, in the case of injuries from a traffic accident, after receiving some treatment in the hospital, the physical body recovers to a certain extent. The problem lies with the human Shin within the injured person. When the accident occurs, the human Shin, which looks exactly like the person, also gets injured in the same area. Even though the physical body has fully healed, if the human Shin is not treated, the physical body continues to feel pain in that area. This is what is commonly referred to as an aftereffect. When the physical body is in pain, the human Shin is in pain, and vice versa. Therefore, if the human Shin is not treated, the body suffers from aftereffects. Thus, to completely treat an illness, the human Shin must be treated along with the physical body. The only way to treat the human Shin is through Shin treatment techniques. Chapter 4. Understanding Shin is the basis of faith and Tao. Section 1. Understanding Shin is the basis of faith and Tao. Many people argue about belief, but very few truly understand Shin. Even those who claim to know Shin often only talk about a few Shin mentioned in scriptures or myths and remain ambiguous and unclear about the rest. However, understanding Shin is fundamental to all faith and Tao practices. One should not lightly claim to have faith, pray, practice Tao, or save humanity without this knowledge. Faith and Tao, without understanding Shin, have their limitations. The categories of Shin are vast and innumerable. Understanding even one category of Shin can take over 1,000 years, and even then, there is no guarantee of complete understanding. Knowing this, one wouldn't dare to presumptuously judge faith and Tao based on their own learned standards and criteria. Therefore, no matter how great one's principles or profound one's enlightenment, it is of no use without understanding Shin. If one does not accurately know the world of Shin, which influences one's emotions and thoughts, it is best not to rashly embark on any form of faith or Tao for self-protection. Blind and vague prayers and Tao practices are useless, even if followed for 100 years. Of course, some individuals may experience miraculous phenomena or witness mysterious events, leading them to take greater pride in their religion or Tao organization. However, such phenomena are not exclusive to any particular religion or Tao. They can occur wherever Qi or Shin is present. Often, what is claimed to be Qi is actually Shin. So, absorbing Qi without understanding its true identity and type essentially allows Shin to enter one's body. Among religious leaders, Taoists, or shamans, some may exhibit strong spiritual powers. These abilities come from Shin. There are differences in ability depending on the Shin involved, but these actions are impossible without Shin's involvement. Having such abilities is often described as receiving a gift, spirit, or supernatural power. If anyone prides themselves on worshipping the Shin they believe to be the highest Shin, they should not worship vaguely or blindly. Only after achieving righteous faith and Tao through personal experience and effort can one guide others. Some claim to heal or save people with their unverified abilities, but these acts can lead to greater harm. Without truly understanding Shin, compelling others to pray or practice Tao under the guise of salvation, and then blaming them for their misfortunes by saying they were tested, practiced improperly, or failed to maintain inner peace, only leads to them being blamed unjustly. Given such a reality, the person who failed to discern correctly should bear some responsibility. It is quite lamentable to consider who will take full responsibility for such harm and how these victims will be helped. Consequently, such actions cause harm to others through Shin. It is contradictory to attempt to save others when one has not achieved it oneself. Knowing just 1 out of 100 and continually claiming it as if it were the whole is not the right mindset for those who seek to achieve righteous faith and Tao. Therefore, before telling others to repent or atone, one must save oneself first. In other words, the salvation of humanity, or saving people, must start with oneself. Section 2. The purpose of being born as a human. Disease and Shin. As people live their lives, they encounter various experiences. Among them, the most significant factor affecting people is their health. Except for injuries caused by external impacts, most human illnesses are related to Shin. Whether people are aware of it or not, Shin and humans coexist. Everything related to harm done or suffered in past lives or the present life exists as Shin within the human body. This is one reason why taking a life is forbidden, as those who are killed become Shin and return to seek revenge. People are greatly affected both mentally and physically by the various Shin within them. If a diseased Shin enters the body, it does so due to a past life connection, but the person suffers from the same illness as the Shin without knowing the cause. If the person dies from that illness, they too become a human Shin with the same illness, seek out their descendants, and the cycle repeats, causing the illness to persist. Despite this reality, if one does not believe in the existence of Shin and dismisses discussions about Shin as mere superstition, a fundamental solution to illnesses will never be found. For illnesses difficult to cure with modern medicine, greater relief could be achieved by combining medical science with Shin treatment techniques. However, those who practice Ki cure, or laying on of hands, must understand that, whether they cure the illness or not, such acts allow the illness to infiltrate their own bodies. Believing only in their small abilities and claiming to heal others without understanding the principles of Shin is possible only because they are ignorant of these principles. If they understood, they would not act so recklessly. Past lives and Shin. Being born as a human is a rare opportunity, and it is equally rare for someone to have been born as a human in a past life. What people often claim as past lives are usually the past lives of the Shin within them, not their own. There are cases where someone uncovers a person's past life and resolves issues entangled with it, thus solving current difficulties. This is the result of fulfilling the wishes of the Shin within that person. In such cases, if the Shin caused illness, the illness may disappear. Or if it caused problems within the family, those problems may be resolved. However, these issues are not related to the person's own past life. If another past life is investigated, another Shin may appear, and the person will be deceived by that Shin's tricks again. Ultimately, investigating past lives in this manner will only reveal the past lives of the Shin within oneself. Being born as a human is an extraordinary blessing and opportunity. It is a blessing because only humans among all living forms on earth can achieve righteous faith and Tao. Through language, which allows for the expression of will, and through the will to act, one can engage in righteous prayer and the practice of Tao. By using this strength to fight and overcome evil Shin, one can attain salvation. Afterward, by diligently learning the heavenly Tao, one can become a heavenly warrior. In doing so, one can live eternally in the heavenly world of Shin without further reincarnation. This is true eternal life as a Shin. Eternal life is often spoken of as millenarianism or chiliasm on earth, but such physical eternal life does not exist. Through righteous faith and Tao, one can achieve the heavenly Tao and ascend to heaven as a holy Shin. This is the first and last opportunity, having journeyed through countless eons of reincarnation, to finally obtain this chance. If one fails to seize this opportunity as a human, despite having all worldly honors, power and wealth, they will end their life and face endless cycles of reincarnation once more. Moreover, it is almost impossible to be born as a human again, no matter how many thousands or millions of years of reincarnation pass. A human life of around 100 years can be compared to the 10 months spent in a mother's womb. Just as one must be well nurtured for 10 months before birth to live a healthy life afterward, you must prepare well for life in the world of Shin during the 100 years of human life. However, if you neglect this precious time and end your life carelessly, your life in the world of Shin will be filled with suffering. It is an obvious result that thinking 100 years of human life is long, but wasting it leads to regret. Therefore, you must realize how precious and valuable your current life is and take good care of it, never losing the first and last opportunity you have been given. Righteous Tao and Shin. Even when faced with the truth, people tend to be reluctant to accept it if they do not understand it. This reluctance is rooted in the tactics of evil Shin that aim to obstruct people from following the righteous Tao. If people were to follow the righteous Tao, they would uncover the true identity of these evil Shin and would no longer be deceived by their tricks, leaving no place for the evil Shin to reside. For this reason, evil Shin use any means necessary to prevent people from following the righteous Tao, and people are subject to these obstructions. One may believe that their knowledge is truthful and correct, but as long as they are under the control of evil Shin, they cannot take a single step closer to the truth. The righteous Tao, as the term suggests, means the righteous path. If it is truly the righteous path, there is only one correct way. However, many different paths are presented, leading people to be deluded into following false paths rather than the right one. As a result, people cannot know or find the righteous path they must follow. Human body, Shin, an entire human race. Some Shin reveal things to people or grant them abilities, taking them to mountains or seas to pray and practice Tao. This is the Shin using people to enhance their own abilities. When the Shin determine that they can no longer gain abilities through that person, they leave without hesitation and seek a new place. The person who had been demonstrating some abilities due to the power of the Shin within them will suddenly feel empty and as if nothing is left. But why do Shin need such abilities? In the world of Shin, abilities represent rank and power, as well as the source of life extension. The desire for longevity and the ambition for power among the Shin are even stronger, never less than those of humans. Evil Shin use their abilities to exploit people, and they enter humans, regardless of whether they are theists or atheists. This is the choice of the Shin, and has nothing to do with human will. These occurrences will become more frequent. This is because evil Shin, having fled from the judgment of heaven, have taken refuge in mountains, seas, underground, and within human bodies. Consequently, all of humanity will experience greater confusion and trials under the impact of these evil Shin. Hananim intends to give people their last chance at this present time, making them listen to their young's voice. If they fail to realize this even now, the future of humanity will be bleak. It is time to wake up, because now is the time of opportunity. The times prophesied and revealed over thousands of years are the very times we are living in now. Many prophecies have existed up to this point, solely to announce this present time. Section 3. Heavenly laws and man-made laws are different. Heaven has prepared everything for this present time, signifying that people must achieve the heavenly Tao through righteous prayer and the practice of Tao. You must understand how one is reborn as a holy Shin, conceived with a holy young, becomes part of the heavenly army to fight and win against evil Shin, and ascends to heaven after leaving the body. Then their achievements will be acknowledged, allowing them to live forever in the new heaven. These are the heavenly laws. Eternal life means that one's human Shin becomes a holy Shin, living forever in heaven. This is living in the kingdom of the new heaven. It does not mean living with a physical body for 1,000 years, as millenarianism or Chiliasm claims, but rather escaping the yoke of reincarnation and living forever in the new heaven. Therefore, 100 years of life is not for worldly living, but a period to achieve the heavenly Tao through righteous prayer and the practice of Tao, offering a chance for eternal life. Despite this truth, some believe in reincarnation in paradise and claim that one can go to heaven just by believing. If people truly understood the gravity and fearfulness of the heavenly laws, they would not speak or act carelessly. Religion is a man-made system. There is no religion in the heavenly laws. The heavenly laws are solely about belief in, obedience to, and loyalty to heaven. Following the heavenly laws means achieving the heavenly Tao through prayer and the practice of Tao within that faith. This message is not only for those who live under the dominion of Shin, but also for the young within people. Only the young remember the Hananim of the beginning and the history of heaven, and can distinguish between holy Shin and evil Shin. While humans and Shin may lie and deceive, the young are never deceitful. Therefore, you must listen to your young's voice to find the heavenly Tao. The opportunity given by Hananim to humans is for the sake of these young. It is the greatest grace and blessing to guide the young, created at the beginning, to find your way back, as Hananim said. Ignorance is no excuse. If one seeks to know, they will be shown the way by any means, but a lack of effort is also a fault. The apocalypse and judgment occur from human foolishness. The apocalypse is the self-destruction of humanity, caused by the evil Shin, and judgment is heaven's recreation of this world, due to people's failure to follow the heavenly laws established by Hananim. Now, people must make an effort to correctly understand and seek the heavenly laws rather than the man-made laws of this earth.